After we last week talked about how to live forever or a far longer time, the question remains, how do we deal with longevity? How do others deal with it? What do we might achieve from it or do with all this time that we get? And there is no clear answer. I mean, it's a science fiction scenario that's going on for hundreds, thousands of years, and people are always wondering how it would be to live forever. And there are many concepts about it, for like life after death and the true immortal beings of the world that might be out there or might have lived at some point. But if they were immortal, then why aren't they here anymore, or do they choose to not be here anymore? Many science fiction books cover this topic, and there are many views that we get on their life. Like in A Court of Thorns and Roses, there are the Fae that live nearly forever. I mean, I at least haven't encountered one that died due to age, and well, they basically live the same as you do. They also struggle with all the social events, everything that's going on, and mostly it's wars that end up killing a lot of people. But in the end, it still comes down to them just living as we do, just in a far longer expanse of time. They have hundreds of thousands of years to master skills and learn whatever they want to do. And that gives them the freedom to always know that they can change later on. They aren't set in a path knowing that for the next 50 years they have to do this because they won't have time to learn anything else. But in return, most of them take far longer to get pregnant, and the rate of childbirth is way lower to kind of counteract with this longevity. In many dragon-based books, the dragons is a species themselves that also lives far longer than we can imagine, and they struggle with a different problem. Even though they do still live their normal lives, going hunting, sleeping, and protecting themselves or their family, they grow forever. They always need more and more food, more and more sleep to keep up with that. And sure, that sounds for the beginning great, getting stronger forever, but also needing more and more food requires you to hunt way more, and at some point there is not a lot you can hunt anymore. At some point there is a limit to your seeming immortality. There are also stories about vampires. Vampires usually live among human beings and try to implement themselves in their societies, but they have the problem of having to switch locations every couple of years, since they don't age as the others their age do, and as their seeming age, not their real age, and therefore always have to kind of start all over again, and then have to struggle with the society effects. Then there are also books talking more about the dead immortality, like Warrior Cats, where all cats that die basically go into one of two realms, depending on what their lives look like, and they live there basically forever until they aren't remembered anymore. So their decision of death is not by themselves or anything happening to them, but just whether or not you remember them. Then there are also many series that have species like the Fae or the Dwarves, and they usually have a far longer lifespan than normal human beings, but they dedicate their life to mastering specific skills or trying to learn as much as they can, or traveling and becoming these wise beings that help future generations start in life and learn as much as they can and try to guide it. But they also this guidance just sometimes leads to conflicts, since even though an immortal being might think that this is the best way to go with it, it might not be the best way for the people living in that time, and therefore also leading to consequences that they might not expect. And also, even if you have lived over 10,000 years, you don't for sure know what something will bring in the future. I mean, most actions usually lead to the same outcome, but at some point there is something that changes this. Even though it's a completely normal thing, it might not lead to the same result on that day. Then there are also video games like Minecraft. You can die regularly depending on the mode you play, and well, the punishment, either nothing really, or you just lose a couple of items that you maybe have to recollect if you want them back, or you don't. Usually you just respawn and are like, well, I'm gonna start from the beginning again, or whatever point you have set up. And that's also kind of freeing, since you don't have to be scared anymore. And that is a huge part of immortality, that you don't have to be scared of death. You can just simply go and try it. And what can happen? If it goes horribly, well, you don't do that again. But immortality has its problems with isolation and boredom, since, yes, of course, you live for hundreds of thousands of years, but if something happens, like a loved one dies, you also have hundreds of thousands of years without anything really happening. And it's something that is very rarely shown in books and films and series, basically everywhere. The negative parts of immortality are not something we like to think about, because it would show us the bad side of this imagination of a happy eternal life. And also another thing I've encountered is that we already know from our lives in the beginning, since we haven't lived that long, all the time that passes seems far longer. Everything we realize is a way bigger portion of our life. And through aging, this aspect changes. When you are 50 and you age 1 year, well, you've gotten 2% older. But when you are 1 year old and you age 1 year, you doubled your lifespan. And therefore, this time is way more important. And if you think about that in a way bigger sense, if you have lived for 100,000 years, and well, the new generation of humans lives 100 years. 100 years, that's 1,000th of what you have lived. So it is, in the end, more or less like a second for you. There doesn't really pass much more time. And even though the moment itself still takes time, looking back at it, looking at what happened, isn't that much anymore. And therefore, this presence might leave. But after all, this is just imagination and a really fun scientific thingy. I don't know what to say about it. And it's interesting. But for all the questions out there, would you like to be immortal? If we are talking about true immortality, yes, it sounds interesting. But if true immortality means I can't die, then I don't know. Maybe there would be a whole nother set of problems that we don't think about.